You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure, smash that like button. So one of LSU's deepest spots on the roster that we've talked about all offseason and so far through camp is defensive line. Ed Orgeron on Wednesday night was on WWL radio and gave a little bit of bad news, though, about that depth.
Glen Logan's going to be out for a while. He re-injured an injury, and he was just doing some light drills, so he's going to be out for a little bit. But the guys that are stepping up are Joe Evans, Neil Farrell lost 10 pounds, Mason Smith and Jacqueline Roy have done really well in the middle. Bryce is coming along. I really feel the defensive line is going to be very strong because of the depth and the athletic ability and the attacking style that we're using.
So a bit of a bummer there as we learn that Glen Logan is battling an injury again. Man, this is really disappointing because Glen's a guy that, poor Glen, who came back for a 6th year. Sorry, the poor Glen just popped into my head. And it fit because of the injury. You have it? Play the poor Glen if you have it. We'll get it. He came back for a 6 year. Glenn. He came back for a 6 year. It was just a way missed opportunity, Muse. I mean, you just totally whiffed on that one. All right, but seriously though. So I do feel bad for Glen Logan. This is a guy who came back for a 6th season to increase his draft stock, and now before the season's even started, he's facing an injury. The thing when I think about Glen Logan that stands out most, aside from like the green dreadlocks, is in 2019, we all assumed, if you remember, that Braden Fehoko was going to be a starter on the interior defensive line. And that didn't happen. It actually was Glen Logan who took that spot. I remember asking Ed Orgeron about that before the season, and he gushed about the camp Glen Logan had in 2019 as he won that starting job. But if you also remember in 2019, Glen Logan suffered that ankle injury against Texas, and he ended up missing 3 games. He had the same procedure. Do you remember when Tua had his ankle injury, and they had they did that procedure where they like thread something like a wire through the ankle to tighten it to sort of stabilize it? Glen Logan had that procedure as well. And he missed 3 games. It was sandwiched. There was a bye week in there, an open date in there as well. So he ended up being able to come back after missing those 3 games. But last year, if you remember, he re-aggravated it, missed the first 2 games before coming back to start the 8 games that he played a season ago. And now here before the season even gets rolling, Glen Logan's injured again. So there's the 2 parts of it. There's the just very obvious disappointment for Glen Logan here in a big season where he's trying to increase his draft stock, where he came back to sort of restore order at LSU and help himself to have this little injury. But it is a loss personnel-wise that LSU can overcome. Now, it's also important to note, Orgeron there did not say for how long Logan will be out. Can you just play the very beginning of it again, Moose, so we can hear it? This is what Orgeron said about Logan's injury.
Glen Logan's going to be out for a while. He re-injured an injury, and he was just doing some light drills, so he's going to be out for a little bit.
Going to be out for a little bit. Going to be out for a while. Going to be out for a little bit. So he didn't clarify, and we'll see if at some point we can get clarification from Orgeron on just how long Logan may be out. But, that's one of those spots where your depth is really good. You've got Neil Farrell, who has played 40 career games at LSU. You have Joseph Evans there, and you heard Orgeron run through the list. Jaquelin Roy, Jacobian Guillory, Mason Smith. You got Bryce Langston as well. So you've got bodies. There's no question. But here's what happens when you lose a guy like that. And remember, Eric Taylor entered the transfer portal last week. So when you look at both Logan and Taylor, now you've lost one guy from the top and one guy from the bottom. You hate to say it this way, but if you're going to have any attrition, you'd rather it happen from the bottom. But now you lose Logan and Taylor, and it's a double whammy because now you're missing 2 bodies and one guy who was projected to be a starter for you. But your depth on the defensive line is good. But, having a starting group that included Glen Logan and Neil Farrell. Look, Logan has played in 45 career games with 31 starts. He is by a mile your most experienced defensive lineman. He, next to Neil Farrell, who has 40 games played, that made a super veteran starting tandem at defensive tackle. Well, now you remove Glen Logan, and very likely Joseph Evans steps in there. Well, Evans has only played in 11 games. So you're replacing a guy who's played 45 games with 31 starts with a guy that's played in 11 career games. So again, now you're not quite as veteran as your starters, and you remove a guy like Joe Evans, who was an awesome backup option from your depth, and now your depth is Jaquelin Roy, who only played last season in 8 games as a true freshman, and then, 9 games as a true freshman, and then Mason Smith, very likely, who is a true freshman. So everybody is forced to sort of move up a rung on the ladder, and so now your depth isn't as good. For what it's worth, Orgeron has been very consistent about Joseph Evans. Not only in that soundbite you just heard from last night, but this was back in the spring, what Ed Orgeron said about Joe Evans.
I want Joe Evans to show out. Joe Evans had a dominating scrimmage again on Saturday. He's probably our best interior lineman.
Probably our best interior lineman. That's what Ed Orgeron said in the spring about Joe Evans. And that it's not like Ed's doing that interview right after Glen Logan gets hurt, and so he's trying to prop up the guy that needs to step up. He's been very consistent in praising Joe Evans since the spring and all throughout the offseason. So good for Joe Evans. It's a really good opportunity for him here to have the opportunity to step in as a starter with Glen Logan out, but you certainly want Glen Logan back as soon as you can get him back. You're disappointed for him, but it's a spot, obviously, that LSU has some depth, and they can certainly withstand this blow temporarily. But it does make it a little tenuous, because now if you lose anybody else, now a position that was a position of great strength becomes a big question mark, the more attrition you have at that spot.